this is Nate with another Backcountry beer review. Today I hiked up to Trampas Peak on the western edge of the Pecos wilderness in New Mexico. And this is one of New Mexico's beautiful 12ers, that is, mountains that are above 12,000 feet in elevation. As you can see, we've got a beautiful view to the south of us towards the Trampas group, and as I'm sure you'll see in the video, great 360-degree views to the other mountain ranges. Really unique view of the Pecos that I've not really seen before, of the land that's north of the Santa Barbara Divide. Even though we're deep into monsoon season, it's a little bit early this year, the weather looks great. I mean, I still expect it to storm today, but it looks like we've definitely got a few hours of dry, cool, clear weather. It's not really too windy, which of course means that there's flies everywhere because nothing is blowing them off the mountain peak. So if you see me waving my hands around, I'm not waving to anybody, I'm just trying to get these bugs away from me. The beer I'm reviewing today is by Tumbleroot Brewery and Distillery in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and it's their Sunrise Japanese Dry Lager. I've become a really big fan of Tumbleroot in recent months, and it's not just because their Agua Fria taproom is within walking distance to my house. I think that their Agua Fria taproom is actually a great place to hang out. It's got, really good atmosphere, the patio is great, and they've always got a really good, albeit limited, rotating tap list. One thing I can always count on them to have is a delicious 2, 3, 4 lagers. And this is one of their staples, this Sunrise Japanese Dry Lager. And it's actually one of the only beers that they can. They do package some of their beer, but it's mostly in bottles. So it's perfect that they can this beer because it is lager summer after all. And I'm really happy to review one of their beers for this series. Now there's not much on the back of the can, but it does mention it's a Japanese dried lager, it's brewed with rice. And based on the name, you can kind of see what they're going for. Obviously, when you talk about Japanese beers, one of the most popular ones is Asahi Super Dry, which is also made with rice. So you have to figure that this is kind of going in that vein, a Japanese style import light lager. And one thing that makes it unique for the lagers that I've reviewed so far in hashtag Lager Summer is that though it is made with adjunct grain, it's not made with any, I guess, non-traditional beer ingredients, right? Like rice is a pretty common ingredient in especially light beers, light lagers, American, Asian, macro lagers. But versus the last few episodes, it's not something like jasmine tea or green chili. It's time for a sip. This is a really delicious beer. To kind of suss through these flavor profiles a little bit, the first third is really dominated by this cracker note. It's kind of the classic cracker note that you get from a lot of lagers and pilsners. But clearly this is an adjunct beer, and I am getting some of that rice flavor. And so I wouldn't just stop at saying cracker, I'd specify that it's actually more like rice cracker, or even rice crispy. Just that crisp rice cracker note, very delicious. And then that kind of shifts into this transitory period where all of a sudden you're greeted with what's kind of a surprise, which is these Pilsner style noble hop flavor. And it's really surprising, really good, pretty bitter, but at the same time very restrained, right? This is by no means a bitter beer. In the middle third, that's where I'm getting these two distinctly identifiable notes in my mind. And they both, I think, stem from the rice, predominantly. The first note I'm getting is this creaminess. It's the natural rice creaminess that you kind of get in something like horchata or rice pudding. And the other note that's really predominating is kind of this rich nuttiness, maybe. And by nuttiness, I mean it's this like fatty nut, right? Think of something like almond milk, right? That's kind of a rich, fatty nut note. Or I would say more specifically, more appropriately rather, toasted cashews. That's what I'm picking up in this. Maybe even buttered popcorn. And buttered popcorn I think is particularly appropriate because I know that there's a tea in Japan, I think it's called genmai cha, and it's made from toasted brown rice that ends up having a popcorn-like flavor. I went to Korea and I had it, but it's mixed with green tea, and I can't remember what it's called, and it was called something like popcorn tea because it tastes like popcorn. I think buttered popcorn is appropriate in that sense because that is kind of a creamy, rich popcorn note that I'm getting from the middle third. The finish, admittedly, the finish is extremely neutral. It's a little underwhelming. Not that it's bad, but it's very reminiscent of something like unflavored mineral water. So again, not bad, just not necessarily as exciting as the first and middle third. This is a delicious beer. It's a beer that you could drink while watching football, just pound them back, or you could sit with it, think about it while reading a book or something, right? It's a versatile beer, very delicious. So cheers and have a backcountry beer for me. Cases, I think that craft brews, when they make like late lot, in some cases I think